So if you would like to start, Rosaline, Rosaline? Is that how you say your name?
Huh?
Rosaline?
Yeah.
Rosaline? Yeah.
Mhm.
Hi, Harry.
We start out with a prayer, opening prayer.
Yeah, we'll start with the opening prayer. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
So if you'd like to say your prayer, Harry, I'll give you some tobacco here.
Heavenly Father, thank you for giving us all another day. Today we pray that we have a good workshop here. We pray for our community members that are back at home, our elders, parents, youth, and little ones. We ask you to bless each and every one of them. We ask you to bless each and every one of us that are here today. We pray for the people that are traveling, give them a safe journey to wherever they're going. Also pray for the people that lost their loved ones a couple of weeks ago. We pray that you give them the strength and the comfort they need as they continue with their healing journey. Lord, dear Heavenly Father, we thank thee and we pray in the holy blessed name. Amen.
Did you want my mom to start?
Yeah.
Okay, Mom.
What's this? Talk about the,
Yeah, just what she was talking about.
okay.
Hold on. Yeah.
Guess I have learned to work with kids that are, you know, alcohol abuse, drug abuse. I worked with them for 3 years in the Grand Council. I worked with the Grand Council. 4 years with the regular kids. So there was always a difference between the regular ones I worked for 4 years and the 3 years I worked with those kids that were brought up with alcohol, later on in drugs. But I can tell the difference between those two groups that I worked with for so many years. And I have heard and seen how the babies are being born today. That I actually had one in my house this winter that was brought up by drugs. And they needed a lot of care. You have to be constantly looking after, watching them, they're really fast, you know, in their behavior. So you have to constantly watch them. But throughout the years that I have worked with my own children, I raised 9 kids, 6 girls and 3 boys. And I had help from my mom and dad. They helped me raise these kids. So they have the knowledge of traditional and the other way. Like my mother was an Anglican. She was born as an Anglican in an Anglican church and worked with a church for so many years in her life. And my dad was traditional. She worked with the pipe and drum, sweetgrass, and stuff like that. So there were 2 of them doing different kind of teaching. My dad, his traditional way, and my mom in her Anglican way. So I followed those 2 traditions for all my life, I guess. I believed in both of them. I did I believed in what my dad was doing, and I believed in what my mom was doing. She goes to church while my dad goes to sun dances, round dances. But one thing I have seen as I was growing up, he never went to a sweat lodge. Never seen him go to a sweat lodge. But he did his own way at home. He did his prayers through sweetgrass. The first thing in the morning, I can smell that sweetgrass as I get up, and I'd see him on the floor with his pipe pointed, south, all over, and he was praying for us to try and live right. That's the way I was brought up, in two different religions. And when I was raising my own kids, I followed my mom's tradition, the church way, the Anglican way. So all of them were baptized in an Anglican church. That's the way I wanted them. But in a way, the older ones know the traditional way too, like Charlene, Gertrude. All of those were mixed with the native way, I guess I will say. But have never been to like the sweat lodge as much as they're doing now, because of my dad. He didn't follow that. He didn't do that. But he still believed in what the traditional way was taught on his way of growing up. That's how he raised me, anyway. When the other ones were growing up in Montreal, he didn't do that as much. But later on in his older life, he lived to be 99 years old. And my mom was 91. And they had a really healthy life. They brought up their kids the right way. We were all born in Montreal Lake. I was born in Montreal Lake in 1942. And we left the reserve of Montreal Lake to be with my grandmother's land, Little Red. That was her native land. That's where she was born and raised. So that's how we became to know the place where I grew up my kids. But I made sure that they get educated, go to school, because my dad wanted them for me to make them go to school the way he did on us, me and Edwin, and the girls. My brothers and sisters, they were not fully educated like me and Edwin did. He went up to grade 9 and I went up to grade 8. But I went to go into undergraduate with doing my social work. I managed to get through to Indian Affairs to fund me to go to school in the city, it's just Saskatoon, to do my classes. So I became a social worker, an Indian social worker. I had a certificate in Indian social work. And I also had a certificate in childcare. That's how I came to work with the Grand Council. 7 years I spent my time in there with the kids. That's how I know how difficult these kids that are born with a syndrome, how they must be in the school area, because they're in their teachings. They were both with the regular kids and the syndrome kids. It's very hard to teach like that. The teachers get strained. They get tired out by trying to teach these kids that are regular, I'll say regular, that are right, and these kids that are not quite right. To teach them both, it's a really strain on them. I have a daughter that taught for 28 years, my oldest one. She had to give up because the system, because she knew the kids so much throughout the years, that she was given all these syndrome kids in her classroom, and it got her sick, and she had to ask to have rests every once in a while, and then she had a heart attack. That was because of the strain of those years that she worked with these kids. And now she says that the hardest thing to do is to work with the two kind. But that's her part. But my part is the way my mother taught me how to teach my children. I taught them the Indian way. Some of them were, the oldest ones, used those things that you call, what do you call them? Tiganagana in Cree. They have a word for them. That's what they used to use them on when they were babies, the oldest ones, because my mother and my mother-in-law knew how to make those, and that's what they made me use them. They said that they can rest better when they're wrapped up like that, because they can't move their arms around or their legs. Because every time, the way my mother used to say, the way they put their babies to sleep now, every time they wake up, they move their arms and their legs, and they wake up and start crying. When they're wrapped up in this little
Moss bag?
moss bag, yeah, that's what they said. It's in an English word. When they're wrapped up like this, you wrap them up like this, and they rest better. They sleep for a long time. Then you can do all the work, what's needed to be done in the house. She said, when the baby sleeps. And another thing, they put them in a swing. They make a swing in the room, and that's how they sleep, but you wrap them up. And then when you put those little arms like this, wrap them up on their arms, they could rest better. And then that's the way my mom taught me how to raise my kids. So all of them, even her, was in a swing, brought up in a swing. But then, when they were growing up, my dad always told us, both me and my husband, make sure you keep the house warm so their feet won't get cold. Because when their feet gets cold, their whole little bodies will get cold, he said. Make sure that you get their moccasins on during the day. That's how come moccasins were important in the olden days, to keep the feet warm. And then I didn't finish my school until I was 42 years old. I raised my kids, I stopped going to school. And then when my little son was 6 years old and had to go in a bus all day in the school, then I started looking for work. And I also had 5 of my grandchildren at that time. I raised Jeff. The first one was her sister, Shirley. I raised her and Jeff because I wanted Charlene to finish her teaching training. And then I got Jo. She works for I had her when she was 3 weeks old. Her mother was going to school doing her grade 11. And I kept her so Gail can continue finishing her school. So she had 2 kids before she was finished her grade 12. But that was the reason why we kept her kids, so she can finish school, do her grade 12, and then continue on. She did administration for 6 years. First 3 years she had to quit because of transportation. Her cars broke down. We used to help her. I don't know how many cars we helped her with so she can finish school. Finally she got her administration, but she had to do it over again, the 3 years when she went back. So she almost doubled her education in administration. And then I kept Jo until she was 16 years old and went back to Mom because Mom was having a hard time with the little one she was raising, the boy she has now. So she went home to help her Mom. And then Guscuts is Shirley. That's her Cree name from her grandfather. Shirley Badger that works in the office. She's now worked for about 7 years in there. I worked for 10 years in administration, welfare, working for the people. In 1980, I started working until 1990. They let me go. The new chief came in. I worked with Chief Roy Bird for 6 years. And I worked for Henry Netaho for 4 years in administration of welfare. And then a new chief came in and he wanted a new staff. So I was out. But I already had I started training as a social worker. I used to work 3 weeks in the office and 1 week in Saskatoon taking social work classes. That's how I became a social worker. And when they let me go at the reserve, I continued my social work. I managed to get funding from Indian Affairs to finish my social work. I didn't get my degree, but I got the other one. They call Indian social work. I got a certificate for that. So it's a long process. I have calls from Frank and asking me how it would be to go back on the work they're doing right now with the kids, how it would be to go back the way we were brought up, like the old way. And I told him, it will be hard. It's not going to be easy, I said, because the old ways are just about gone. Because of the way the kids are being born, and the families being disoriented by alcohol, first alcohol, and then the drugs start coming in. About 25 years ago, I noticed that the drugs in Little Red start coming in. Before the 25 years, the kids were all right. There was nothing in their system, because people didn't drink every day. The only time they drank was some weekends when some people got paid. That's the only time they used to use alcohol. Of course, there was always something that the old people used to make, their own brew. But I don't think that one had anything to do with a syndrome. It was the whiskey that changed the babies in the belly. And then mixing it with that wine, whiskey, beer, and then the drugs, and then what comes after this, what you call this new thing that's coming on, it really disturbs the baby that's inside the mother's stomach. They didn't realize that until quite a few years ago, that first thing they found out was it was the mother drinking the beer and the things that they use on drugs. And later on, we found out that it came from the man, because the baby comes from the man. That if the man was using so much alcohol, so much drugs, and he makes the baby that's where it starts from. It didn't start from a woman. It did a little, because she won't quit when she's pregnant. A lot of them quit. Yes, they already learned what was happening to these kids that are being born with a syndrome. And there's what I found out when I was working with these kids for so many years, 3 years, that there was pills that were made to make them quiet. But that was all. They didn't heal their brain. It was in the brain that the baby is damaged. In some sort, one part of the brain where they can't talk. That's a lot of little babies, when they're about a year old, they get tongue-tied, they can't speak. That's a part of the brain they damaged. And there was other parts of the brain that I learned through working with these kind of kids that their little brain was damaged when they were inside a mother's stomach. That's how they were born. There was one kid that we had in there that she was a smart kid. She could learn by listening. But when she was given a book to write out, she was historian, she can tell little stories, and when she writes like this, up and down, not like this the way we do. And that was her storytelling, and nobody can understand it. See how damaged she was in her brain when she was in her mother's stomach. We had a principal there, that was her child. That was his child, the man that was working with a school. And he told us about that. And he brought that girl in to show us how she writes her little stories, up and down. See, that's what we're going against, this syndrome. I'll call it a syndrome with these kind of kids that we are experiencing today. That's why there's so much education going on, just like here, that they work on kids. I'll say that not all, but some will grow like that. But what I found out when I was working and training through those years of training, that the white man has these kind of kids too, but they hide them. They put them in group homes, away from where people won't see them. Some of them you can see, those are the kids that has a different kind of a face. Yeah. Those are the hidden group. We learned about those too when I was getting trained.
Nip nanmaga.
Hi?
Otatuski ogo guta. Nip nan otatuski au tansi tagisi paminsoak. Matatuski ego ni gani ogega. Sta.
Yeah, kay kita takiskinohamagi, just like they have to go backwards to where they were, well, how people used to live long, just like me, the way I used to be brought up. They were brought up hunting, fishing, and like today we don't have no rabbits. They used to train us how to snare rabbits, how to catch muskrats, stuff like that. You can't do that now, but you can go back to sewing, even that little thing that I call. I had a class like that this girl had this old lady training how to make those little, what you call them,
Muffins?
Walked, yeah, moss bags. I had one, but they, they borrowed my moss bag. And when I asked them to bring it back, and they lost it, but I have a way of making them. Me and my daughter tried making one. Alvina is good for that part of work. My daughter Alvina, she makes those moss bags, but a little bit different than the original way, because we can't find no moose hide anymore. So we have to use different things. When I was working in that group home, what we were taught is to make reports. Those are the very important things that we do, is write up the kid that you're looking after. You take home visits. We used to, but we had them in a home. As we had 10 in one group home, and there was 4 workers in that group home. 3 of us were childcare workers. The 4th one was a night watch. She stays there all night, from 9 to 9 o'clock in the morning. And 3 of us would look after those 10. And we used to have three to each person. And those 3, we keep track of their behavior, making them get up in the morning, wash up, fix their beds, comb their hair right, and then put on their clothes right, and then they'll be ready to take them to school. And the work of that, we had to take them to school, right to the school, and make sure that they go inside the school. And then we can go back to the dorm and clean up. But our worker that was looking after us, she told us to watch these kids when we have them and make sure that we write up everything of their behavior, whether it's improving or getting worse, or they had they're very easy to get mad. You do one little wrong thing, or another kid do a little wrong thing, and they go into really tantrum. And we had to, and one thing they said, you don't yell at them. Don't yell at them. Talk to them in their ear. They'll calm down to you. That's how we were trained. So we had a hard time. We had to separate them when they're fighting, and they had to take them away from each other so we can talk to them and tell them not to do that. That's not good. We had a lot of teaching about that, and first of all, I didn't believe it would work, because my partner was always yelling at the kids on top of her voice. Yes, they stop and listen for a while, but that's all. They'll get mad again. Yes, it was hard working with those kind of kids, especially 10 of them. They like to fight. They don't get along with each other. It took us 3 months when we first had them, 3 months to train them, to try and change them a little bit so they could get along with each other. It was hard to So what I was thinking about those group homes in Montreal, I wonder if that's what they were going to do, put them all in tents like that. I wonder if that's how they were gonna do it. I didn't ask when Frank asked me how I think would be a good thing to bring back the old ways. And that's what I told him. It was going to be a hard job to do, to bring them back in the old ways. But you can teach them. You can teach them how we live, like looking at a person skinning a moose, repairing the limbs. Now there's nobody that can do hides. That would be a good thing for them to learn. We had one woman that taught us how to do that, to skin right from taking the I don't know what it's called, but it's the skin that you take off with a bone, and then the fur. She taught us how to do it, and she's gone. That was the last woman that I know that did that. But things like that teach them how to fish. Net fishing is very important for them to learn. The kids today, even the ones that are not special need. Like Little Red, they don't ever see that kind, to net fish. But to teach them how, I know they're teaching them how to hunt and how to prepare meat. Right here, we're just doing that at Little Red. But like beadwork, that came a long way. Making hides, but beadwork, it can be done. That was one thing that I didn't learn. My mom did, but not me. She taught me how to make moccasins. And I was telling my older girls that there was a different way of making moccasins. In the old way, they were pointed like that. My grandmother used to wear moccasins like that, and she used to make them like that. But I didn't see her making them. But I seen my mom how she made moccasins. She made them around like this. That's the difference from the old way, the old way. And what I have been doing this last fall is I was taught by my mother how to can fruit. And I had a class of canning berries, Saskatoons, raspberries, and blueberries. I taught them how to can. But I do that at home all the time. In the fall, I start canning. So that's what I'm trying to teach. If the students can learn by looking, but the older ones I wanted to teach, new mothers like her, that how you cook the berries, how much sugar you put in there, and then you boil the jars, and because they won't keep if you don't put the jars on hot water. and then the hot berries and put them mixed together, the lids will pop when you put them on the sealer and you put them upside down. They seal. You can keep them all winter. And that's what I was trying to teach her, to teach the other mothers how to do things. Because you can keep fruit all winter if you know how to do that. You can can peas, you can beets, you can make pickles out of cucumbers, and you can make straight beets just using boiling water, cooking them in boiling water and cutting them up and just put them in hot water and can them. You can keep them all winter. They won't spoil if you do it the right way. That's what I was trying to teach these.
We did have when we had our elders gathering.
Yeah.
She did the canning, teaching of canning to the ones that showed up, the young elders that showed up, and I did record her canning, going through the process and the teaching. So I have that on my phone. So that's one good thing that I collected of my mom. So I have that on, and I can show that. And I'm so grateful for her today to be able to still be here and doing that, because it's important.
Mm-hmm. But you can also can meat, just like that. You put that meat, you cut it up in little pieces and you put it in a jar with a little bit of fat, and then you boil the jars just like that. They have canning, they have real big pails that you can boil those. Actually boil about 6 jars, and you boil them until you can see that they're cooked, and then you take them out of that and tighten that thing and put them upside down. There you have a stew, because that gravy, it turns into just like jelly. See, you can just open that jar and warm it up. That's how I was taught too, how to can meat. But this meat was beef. I never tried on moose, but I did beef, and it worked. It worked. I used to make those for my father-in-law. He used to buy the beef, and I used to can it for him because he had no teeth. So that meat went really soft, and he can eat it like that. So that's where I taught myself how to can meat. And I found out that if you mix this hamburger from the white, the beef, and the moose hamburger, mix them together, and then you mix a little bit of onion and grinded onion and grinded potatoes. That's where my mom used to do that. She used to mix those two together, and she used to make patties, and she used to make little lumps like, for macaroni, those spaghetti, meat. That's another thing that I had learned. I can teach a lot of stuff my mom taught me, but beadwork beats me. I can't see right, and I lost my eye maybe about four years ago. I had an operation, and they scratched my eye, so they spoiled my eye. So I can only see on my good eye. And another thing that's fading in my life is my hearing. I can't hear right. I had an appointment on the 3rd to go to a hearing aid, to get a hearing aid. And then I had another appointment with Ed Morasti out in Candle Lake. So I had to cancel out my hearing aid. But pretty soon I will have a hearing aid. I can hear better. But yes, this group needs to make reports. That's the most important thing. Because without reports, they have to be sent back, right? To get the money reimbursed. And if there's no reports going, they'll stop the program. That's what I learned, that it's very important to make those reports. Like I was telling her, that she has to make reports. Make sure that they get receipts and what kind of program she's teaching. Make sure that it's reported. That's what I told Frank. If you ever open that group home over there, I said, that it's very important that the reports go in. Because that's how why I know that's how we lost our group home in Little Red. We had workers that had their certificates at first. They wanted me to go and work in the group home, but I said no. I'm going to work in the office the way Henry wanted me to work. I said he wanted me to open the office, and that's where I'm going to stay. I told the director. But you know how to run a group home. Yes, I know how to run a group home, but if you have a good director in there, a good social worker in there, she will know what to do, I said. That woman left after a while, and then these other women that didn't have their certificates went in, and they didn't do no reporting at the end of the month. And they had kids. They had about 6 or 7 kids in there, but no reporting. See, without reports, the money won't come back. I didn't tell them that because I didn't know at that time. I should have known because that's the way I worked with administration, welfare administration. I had to make a report every month, take my report into Indian Affairs, and they look through it, they sign it, and then they send it away for reimbursement. I didn't know that the group homes worked the same way, because our boss at the Grand Council didn't tell us that. They just make sure that we did the reporting. Written reports, that is important. So whatever you do, your workers, you have to make sure that you write up a report on, just like the canning that I did. She wrote it down, she made a little proposal, and it got accepted. So all she had to do was get a group to watch what I was doing, and she put it on tape with her little cell. That I can't do because of my eyesight. I can't see right. Even the numbers, I can't see right. But I can do things. I can sew. I'm good at sewing, I can make traditional blankets. I can make star blankets. I can make moccasins. I can make mucklucks. I can make whatever's required because I'm good at my sewing machine. So with these things, I can teach the workers if they want me to teach them. But it's hard work to do a star blanket. I was taught by a Sioux woman. I was working with her at a student residence. And at night when the kids are sleeping, she had her sewing machine. She would teach me how to do that star blanket making. She's gone, my friend is gone. A lot of experience went with her. Yeah, that's what I wanted to tell them is, and then when they have programs, like they have the big program over there at Montreal Lake, that's the main office where the money is. We don't have the administration in Little Red. It takes time for the workers to make a proposal, to send it over there, to get monies for the training course. That's one part that we always have problems because we get shortage of funding. Every year I know we have less people there. And another thing that happened is when they opened the urban office, so whatever monies we had in Little Red, half of that money went to the urban, the people in the city. So just like we were only getting 1/3 of the big money that's sitting in Montreal Lake, we only get portions at Little Red and portions in urban. I've been a counselor for Little Red. That's how come I know about administration, how they administrate money. But I never push at what the chief is doing. But she has to know that we are entitled to all the money that is supposed to be distributed to our reserve. So the people that are working there's more and more people working, especially when these programs start coming in. They need more money for supplies, for training, and for lunches. It takes a lot, especially when groceries are up in the air. They've showed it up since this part of what this Trump did to the supplies coming in and out. I know about that too. I always look at the news. That's why today we have a problem in medical care, because the pharmacies can't get the drugs that they need. I find that out because I get a supply of those drugs every month. I'm a diabetic, And I've been through 3 heart attacks and 4 or 5 slight strokes. So I get medication, a lot of medication. And I know that they're having a hard time getting the right kind of medicine, the pharmacies. That's why in the future, just like if nothing changes, we're going to have even a harder time looking after people, after children. And those are the most important things that we have to do, is look after kids in the right way. They make sure that they get fed, make sure that they go to school. Education is very important to them. Although it's hard on the teachers to teach them the way they're supposed to be taught, because they don't have that kind of knowledge like like we do, who are born without an addiction. So I was trying to get through the message that they treat us right, where I hear they have a worker that's working in different areas, like not in the reserve. And I don't know if that's right, because the money belongs to the reserve. That's why the government gave us this money, so the people can train, people can eat, the people can get educated, get to be doctors, nurses, teachers. That's why the government gave us this money. I like to get through that one, that we do not get only partial funding when our kids need training. They need the proper care. I have a daughter that have 5 kids, 5 of her grandchildren that she looks after on her own. But they were ICFS kids. They were brought to her. And then after 6 months, she applied for family allowance, and a lot of them. She couldn't get family allowance for some of them because they were not registered. That's another thing these little kids have, when they're being born, they have to be registered through the right registration office in Ottawa, in Regina. I have a girl trying to register her grandchildren, and that's where she's having a problem. The hospitals used to register those kids and send the registration to wherever. Now they don't. They don't do that anymore. The parents have to do that on their own to get their babies registered. And sometimes when they abandon their kids, or they're put up in care, the foster parent won't do that, because it has to be the mother to register them. See, that's where my daughter is having a hard time registering that, because the mother left. She has to take the mother to the registration office to sign her name. That's where it's hard. This is what you people will probably run into, the kids that are not registered. Well, ICFS, when I was working for ICFS, I worked with ICFS. I opened the office. I had to get the hospitalization cards for them right away, because where the kids are placed, when they get sick, they have to have that hospitalization card. I had a hard time. It took me a long time to get their hospitalization cards and their treaty cards. That's the first thing that we were asked, to get their hospitalization cards, register, that treaty number, treaty cards, and SIN numbers. Now they give babies SIN numbers right from the hospital. Some mothers don't know that. There's another one that there was 4 of them that I know that you have to have. So when these kids that come back from being looked after by the province, a lot of them won't have that. And when they come into the reserve, that's how the group home was supposed to be run. We were supposed to get those kids back from the province, and there's a liaison worker in between that we worked. We managed to get about maybe 5. We had one with five kids, and then there was some that we were working with when me and Vi were working with a liaison. They didn't have their treaty cards. They didn't know their treaty numbers. And we as workers had to do that. We had to get the hospitalization cards came first, because if they get sick while in care, they need that. And then the treaty numbers, and then the social insurance numbers. And then there's still another one. There was 4 of them that we were working with when we were working with ICFS. And the first time when I first opened the office in Little Red, I didn't have very many clients, but what I found out was they gave funding to the reserve for the same amount as the province. The province gets a lot of money for those kids, the ones that are in care. And when they first gave money to the bands, 5 million went to the place I was working.
Yes, for sure.
So each kid had the same amount as the province get. When I was working with the group homes, and when it came down to the reserve, now I opened the office. I tried getting that same funding as the province get for those kids that I was looking after. The first time I asked, I got that money. I had over 1,000, 1,200 for each kid, ranging from 1,200 up or down. And then about 3 months after, already the system changed. It went down to from 1,200 to 500 to each kid. 600 for the babies. The babies and right up to 3 years old, I think they got 600. See how if nobody there to fight for that money from the province, then we go down. I learned that too. So that's what these councillors, chief and councillors are supposed to be pushing and get all the funding that they can get. I don't know how it happened, but I was there when it happened, when that funding went down from the regular funding that they had. I found out that the first 5 kids that we got from the province, I found out that it was a social worker from Indian Affairs that had those 5 kids. And he was getting paid the provincial wages for each kid. So 5 kids, how much money does he get a month? See, and things like that, how different the funding is from going down to the reserve and to the province. And how they got the kids to become wards. I learned that too. They have them 4 times. The mother has to go to court when they lose a kid in town, like right here. I had one that I had to fine every month to take her to court. But she got her kids back. I managed to take her to that courtroom 4 times till she didn't get them back herself, but her sister did, because she was drinking. She couldn't stop drinking. That's the reason why she wouldn't get her kids back. But I went through those kind of court systems. That's how they became. 4 times, if the mother is not there, they became wards of the province. And then there was one case that me and Vi got sent to Vancouver. There was a mother from Montreal that lost a baby, and the Roy Chief got word that the baby was apprehended, and they were letting him know. So he sent us, me and my co-worker. We went to Vancouver. We went to court in Vancouver to try and get that kid back to Montreal. There we had a stumbling block too. There's another thing that we couldn't get that kid back because he was born in the state of British Columbia. That stopped us from getting that kid back. He said he belongs to our state now. Although he belongs to your band, he's only a band member. We will let him know when he's 18 years old where he belongs and who his mother is. That's what they were told. So there's another case that we stumbled into. working with the province. They're not easy to cope with, but I get to learn. I get to know the director from here, from Prince Albert. I used to talk with him. And I used to tell him that I'll be working with the mother to try and get that kid back. And they did. They did get that kid back. Those are the ones that are living in Little Red now. Those two kids that I got back. And I think 2 of them are in Montreal. I had 5 kids I got back from the province. And we had a battle with the province that time. So hard. You have to do the right thing. And if the mother wants her kids back, she will go through those 4 stages of court system to get her kid back when they're apprehended in the city. There was a case that what happened. Well, I knew that family, that they were in the bush working, and then they came to the city and they got a room in the city, and they had their kids, and they started drinking in a room, and I guess somehow they were fighting, and the police were called. What happened next? They were taken. The kids were all taken. I think there was 4 of them. And that's that. Years later, they got adopted. The province, when they were in the province, when there was nothing done to get them back, they got adopted. One was in Virginia, and he learned about a dad that was living in Little Red, and he came back. He was an adult when he came back. But he also got married, and he had, the people that adopted him had a farm. And they died, I guess, and he owned the farm, so he went back. He went back to that farm. He just wanted to meet his dad. That's why he came back. There's cases like that. When I was working in there was those two of them came back. They were 2 brothers that were in the same home, and the mother couldn't be found to go to. They phoned me. I was in the office that time. They phoned me, and I tried locating the mother. 2 weeks they held the court date for me to find the mother, and I couldn't find the mother. So I had to go and report to the court system. So they held those kids. But when they were 16 years old, they just like the place that they were in, something happened, and both of them they let them go, and they told them that where they belonged. And they came back. But the father didn't want them. He didn't know them because they were apprehended when they were small. So those ones I looked after them. I found a home for them in here. I found a home for them, an apartment so they can live together because they know each other. And I told them to go to Sayas, to places where they can find employment, because they were 16 and 17-year-old. And they did find some kind of work, because I reported it to that worker to try and help them find a way to live. Those are the old cases that I had worked with in my time. And at that time when I was working, there was 36 cases that were out there, 36 kids that were out there that needed to be, try and bring back. That was why they made the group homes at that time. 2 were built in Montreal Lake and 1 in Little Red. I don't know how they survived those ones, those group homes. But ours went down just because they didn't report. Not the right kind of person anyway, towards the end. And it was the counselor's fault because they didn't hire the right people. You got to be certified social workers to work in those group homes. If not, they can break down.
So we have a gift for you for speaking today.
Present you the gift. Good. This way.
Have a gift for you first before you pray.
Okay.
That's for coming to speak with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we appreciate the knowledge that you're giving us and your stories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just put it up.
I'll pour it, Corinne.